Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another full review video. In today's full review video, we are taking a look at the Ruger Mark IV Tactical. As always, guys, there are links down in the description where you can support everything that I do here on the channel. One of the #1 ways that you can do that right now is by purchasing one of the pieces of merchandise that are on the Firearm Freedom merchandise store. That is the very first link down below. I have some awesome new shirt designs. If you want to make sure that you're not being censored out of existence here on YouTube, interacting with these videos really does help. So if you comment down below, like the video, hit the subscribe button, that should ensure that these videos do not get hidden from your subscription feed. What a roller coaster ride it has been with this Mark IV Tactical. I started this with a first impressions video that is now 4 months old. It's crazy how fast time flies these days. I did the first impressions video on the Mark IV Tactical here, and it did not have these upgrades yet. I was actually going to do an upgrades video, but I have now put so many rounds through it, and it has been 4 months that I figured, you know what, I'm going to rope it into a full review video, and I've learned a lot about this pistol and about really 22 ammunition these days as a whole. In that first impressions video, I talked about the magazines, and the magazines given me some problems. When I would load them past 7 or 8 rounds, they would not feed that first or second round out of the magazine. When the rounds actually went into the gun worked great. I did not have any issues with cycling or anything like that. If the firing pin was able to hit that rim, it generally was going to work. But the magazine was having a bear of a time trying to feed the rounds fully loaded. It was really tough to say one way or another. As I mentioned in earlier reviews, 22s kind of lend to those issues sometimes. And I've always heard nothing but stellar reviews on the Mark series of pistols from Ruger. So I was a little bit confused, and I was trying to kind of wrap my head around what the issues could possibly be. I had a really good friend of mine who is also a subscriber of the channel. Tom, shout out to you if you're watching this. He also knows quite a bit about 22s, especially when it comes to Mark pistols, and he actually gave me a Ruger Mark III magazine that I was able to use in the Mark IV. The magazines are cross-compatible between those depending on which Mark III or which Mark IV you have. This magazine does work in the gun, and he said, hey, you know, maybe it's those new Mark IV mags. The coating might be a little bit weird, whatever. I have a total right now of 5 of the Mark IV mags. There's one in the gun. He's like, try out the Mark III mag, see if it works. Now, I tried this out with the same ammunition, and it seemed to work okay. It was able to feed all 10 rounds without issue, so I thought, you know, maybe it is the magazines. Maybe the magazines are just a little bit weird with the coating, and they had a bad batch of them go out or something like that. Because of those reasons, that's why it's not feeding. The reason why it's been such a freaking roller coaster ride is I brought it back to the range this past weekend, and it ran 100%. We had about 300 rounds out with us, and there was not a hiccup from start to finish. Not only did it run 100%, it ran 100% fully loaded on every mag that I had. And on top of that, to include the variable that I had before, the gun was nasty dirty. I have been shooting it primarily suppressed, so it was all gunked up. And part of me was like, well, maybe it's just getting gunked up and that's why it's not feeding the rounds. It was still very, very dirty. And again, it chambered all those rounds. It fed all those rounds. No problem at all. What was the variable? What changed? It was the ammunition, surprisingly. Before, I was using CCI ammo and Aguila ammo, and both of those had issues feeding, whether it was the really nice CCI, the mini mags, which should not be giving any issues. I got some ammo out of the safe that was some like Remington crap Thunderbolt that I got about 10 years ago, and I also had some real old Federal that I got around the same time. I put all that through it, and again, it fed it no problem. The difference, in my opinion, and what I think is going on here, is the newly produced 22 ammunition having this pretty ridiculous amount of wax on the ammunition itself. Now, 22 ammunition is generally going to have a wax coating on it. That's not necessarily a complaint that I have. It seems like for whatever reason these past few months they have been cranking out this 22 ammunition with just the thickest wax coating on it that I have ever seen on 22 ammunition. So just to make you aware that that may be an issue if you're buying new 22 ammunition with these mags. It's kind of one of those things where you want to buy a few boxes here or there of a few different types and manufacturers of modernly produced ammo. See if you have any issues. Maybe this is a small issue that's occurring that's not happening with a lot of people. I am so much more excited about this pistol now. I was getting really bummed out because I brought it back to a lot of different range days to do the upgrades video and to do the full review video. And every range day, I'm trying to figure out all the variables, and it still just wasn't running 100% because of those mags. And I really wanted this to be some really cool sentry dispatching night vision setup, or even in that type of shit hits the fan defensive role. And because of that reliability, it just wasn't really living up to it for me, and it was getting me, again, bummed out. This last range day, when I realized finally that it was the ammunition that was the issue, and it ran 100%, I finally got to have just a blast with this thing at the range. And let me tell you, it shoots so damn good. This pistol from start to finish, when it was working on those past range days, and this past range day when it worked 100%, is a blast to shoot. It's tough to explain, I have fallen in love with the Mark series of pistols after this review process on the Mark IV Tactical. I love the alloy frame that this has, and it's not the polymer frame. It gives you that kind of old school look about it. And when it comes to accuracy with these guns and bringing it into shootability at the range, this thing will chew the bullseye out of the target every single time. If you do your part, it is probably the most accurate pistol that I have in my collection, hands down. The Vortex Viper red dot that I have on here, I had this in the first impressions video. Wherever that dot is pointing, that round is going to go. So I have a few groups on the paper there that you guys are probably going to see in back roll here or there. That was at about 12 yards. And anywhere that I felt a small flinch on the trigger, that round went. It was just a tiny bit, tiny bit off. But for the most part, if you actually take your time, I was just chewing out the bullseye of every single target. It didn't matter how fast you were going, you can really just chew it out. And because of the weight of the Mark IV Tactical, so it's 22, it's not going to recoil that much anyways, but this thing does not move. I mean, you can just hold it there, and it just doesn't move at all, and it is a freaking blast. I was shooting it primarily this last range day and a few of the other range days with my Silencer Co. Sparrow suppressor and also my Rugged Oculus suppressor. Both of those suppressors performed incredibly well with this gun, and it is just laughably quiet. You will notice us multiple times in the back roll literally laughing while we are shooting it because it is that quiet and that fun, and that is something that I always love about all my other 22 pistols in the collection. I also have gotten used to the trigger a good bit more. At first, it's not that the trigger is bad at all, it's incredibly light, but it was actually a little bit for me to get used to. I don't know what it was about it. It was because it was so light and maybe that it just did not have any recoil that I found myself really having a hard time finding that wall occasionally on the reset, and that I've gotten used to quite a bit now. We're probably at around the 1,500 round mark. Getting quickly into the upgrades that I made to the gun. Of course, we are rocking some goon tape. I'm channeling my inner Assassins 90s movie with Stallone in this grip tape here because it gives that cool factor of that movie, and also the practical ability of giving you some traction, and I just think it looks perfect with that red Ruger Eagle back there in the back, and it looks awesome. Still have on the Vortex Viper. That has been an incredible red dot for this little 22 here. It works great. This is a red dot that I think really shines on a 22 because of the battery life and other things like that. I could not see it as a defensive use. But on something like a 22, it is going to work really, really nicely. I don't have any issues with it at all. And even though it doesn't necessarily have a rated night vision setting, This actually comes up great under night vision. You can get it low enough where it really isn't causing any issues to the tube, and that kind of ties in to the last upgrade that I did to it, which was adding on my Streamlight VIR2. If you guys don't already know, this is Streamlight's IR aiming device that is actually the exact same overall size as a TLR1. So holsters are going to fit. We'll talk about that a little bit later in another video. And you have the ability of a visible white light option that works the exact same as the TLR1. And then as you can see here with the switch, you can put it into IR, and in that IR setting, you get a really nice IR illuminator, and you also get an IR laser that kicks out through those little spots in the bezel of the light, and that makes for a very, very cool and quiet night vision pistol that works really nicely now. And again, in combination with that vortex, you can either aim passively or actively with the illuminator and the laser, and it works really nicely under night vision. You guys will be seeing this in a future video when we're getting more into the night vision stuff down the road. I did have these Picatinny rail sections surprisingly getting loose on me more times than I thought they would. Everything was properly torqued down, everything had Loctite, but in further investigation before this video was being filmed, I took all of the rails off, and they had a ton of factory oil and grease under there, so I believe that was getting into the threads of the screws a little bit and just kind of getting rid of that blue Loctite from working properly. So I went ahead and degreased that. I put a thin layer of blue Loctite under there. Thanks to my good buddy recommending that to me as a little bit of a seal and help it stay firmly on there. So I put blue Loctite under the rail itself, just a thin layer, and then also new blue Loctite around all the screws. And I did that on the bottom rail as well. I doubt I'm going to have any other issues, but that is just something worth noting. Something else that I noticed about the pistol is how nice the mags come out when it comes to reloads. You'll notice they fly out the bottom of the gun. I notice this a lot when running and gunning with the pistol at the range. You'll be seeing that a lot in GoPro footage and other things. If I had a better way to store these other mags on my battle belt, kind of a little bit tough because of how small they are, reloads would be pretty damn fast with this thing because they just fly out the bottom of the gun. And you would think it would be really difficult to feed that tiny mag into the mag well, but it's actually not bad at all. It's pretty easy to feed it up in there. Sometimes on 22 target pistols, they make it so difficult to do quick reloads. I understand that, of course, it's a target pistol. It's not necessarily designed for fast reloads. And you could really, I see this pistol as either being a target pistol for you. If you wanted to remove all the rails completely or leave the top rail and have an optic, whatever else, it can shine in that department. The accuracy is phenomenal. The trigger is great. You can get trigger upgrades and other things. If you wanted to have it as a little trapping gun, it is a little heavy for that, but it could do that, no problem, especially with the right ammunition. And in my case, I want to have this as more of an SHTF situation where you need to be very, very quiet at night, under night vision, and I think there's a lot of roles that this could fall into. As I mentioned in the first impressions video, we have been using Mark Series Ruger pistols in military applications suppressed at night for clandestine stuff for a very, very long time, and a lot of them are still in service today. Now, a lot of those are integrally suppressed and other things and have crazy, huge aim points on them sometimes and things like that, but this is a very, very capable pistol in the right situation, and that's what I really love about the Ruger Mark Series is they really have something as far as models go for whatever application you're looking for. And I have, again, grown to love this pistol even more after the last range day when it was finally working as it should, and when I realized that the issue was not the gun itself, was not the magazines, but just some weird ammo of 2022, which you're seeing a lot these days with how hard they're trying to pump this stuff out. That is going to wrap up this video on the Ruger Mark IV Tactical. This thing has been incredible. I absolutely love this pistol through and through, and now it is officially, with the right ammo, going into that role in my collection. If you guys have any other questions about this pistol or anything else on the channel, please throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out the description for all the links to support the channel, and stay tuned for more great videos coming soon.